Hello world, my name is Ihor, and today I'd like to talk about these two beautiful machines from Elektron, the Digitakt and the Octatrack MK2. These machines are quite powerful samplers and performance tools, and they overlap quite a lot when it comes to functionalities and the things that they can do, but also they are super different. I consider them as two completely different tools in my workflow. And in today's video, I would like to share my thoughts and my personal opinion on the differences that they have, what these differences mean to me and my music production workflow. Let's get started. First of all, I'm running the latest firmware updates on both of the machines as of date of recording. And it's 1.4a on the Octatrack and 1.3 on the Digitakt. When it comes to the price, Digitakt of course is cheaper, is 750 euros I think, and the Octatrack is 13 or 1400, so it's way much more expensive than the Digitakt. Before we go any further with all the details, first of all I would like to share the main difference that they have, and this difference is written on top of their screens. Basically, the Digitakt is a digital drum computer and sampler, and the Octatrack is dynamic performance sampler. And this is the main biggest difference that I see in between these two tools. And hopefully that will make more sense later on in this video. So these two machines are samplers, are 8 tracks samplers. And the first difference comes that the Digitakt has a master track. So basically, technically it's like 9-track sampler because you have 8 tracks for voices or for samples, and then the master track with compressor and the mixer and external mixer if you need it. While the Octatrack is 8 tracks sampler, but to have a master track and to put compressor on it, for example, you would sacrifice track 8 for that purpose. And then it turns into like 7 tracks sampler and 1 master track. So this is the first difference. Also, Digitakt is a mono sampler and the Octatrack is a stereo sampler. So basically on the Digitakt you would play all mono samples and then go into panning and effects to make them a little bit wider, while on the Octatrack you can play back any samples, for example. Which also leads to another thing, that the Octatrack can play back long samples, like tracks, for example. You can easily set the static machine and play an entire track on the Octatrack, while on the Digitakt it's gonna be kind of impossible. Also, the Octatrack has time stretching and slicing, so every long sample or any sample can be basically sliced or time stretched. For example, if the longer sample was recorded with 120 BPM, you can easily play it back at 90 or 140, and the Octatrack will do the time stretching, while on the Digitakt it's simply impossible. I think you can do the time stretching on the Digitakt with some LFO stuff going into the sample position, start position, something like that, but that's rather hack than a feature. Both of them also have MIDI tracks, 8 each, and they are really good at sequencing external gear like modular or any other synthesizer. One little advantage of the Octatrack is that it has 3 LFOs per track for MIDI as well, while the Digitakt has only 1. So when it comes to effects, Digitakt is quite straightforward. It has delay and reverb as 2 main master effects. So basically you can send any of the audio tracks into reverb and into delay, and you can set them up globally, the settings, and also you can send delay into reverb. So when it comes to the Octatrack, it doesn't have any master effects or send effects, but rather on every single track you have 2 slots for effects, and they're gonna be chained. And also you can have even more effects if you go with a neighbor track, and you can basically have 4 effects or 6 effects or 8 effects, but then you're gonna take over entire 4 tracks for that. So again, 1 track, 2 effects. And that's where it comes a little bit into the tricky situation, because for example, if you need a filter for your sound, it's gonna take over one of the effects over here. While on the Digitakt, you have filter per every track. Also, you have overdrive on every single track on the Digitakt, while on the Octatrack, to have overdrive, you will have to select either filter effect and then use distortion, or go into lo-fi effect and use overdrive or distortion of lo-fi effect. But that's gonna take over one of the effect slots. Another thing which is tricky about the Octatrack effects is that on the first effect slot, you cannot have delay or reverb. It's basically can be only on the second page, which means that if you would like to have delay plus reverb on one track, you would have to utilize two tracks for that, because you cannot simply achieve that with one track. So that's a little limitation as well. However, you have quite a lot of choice from different effects that the Octatrack has. For example, you can have chorus, flanger, comp filter, lo-fi effects and whatnot. There is way many more effects for you on the Octatrack than on the Digitakt. And when it comes to sampling, there is a difference as well. So while on the Digitakt you can sample a mono sample and then you can trim it a little bit, it's gonna be normalized, and then you can utilize it as one shot or something else. On the Octatrack, you have way much more resampling possibilities. You can sample quantized loops, like 4-bar loops, in the live situation, like a looper. You can overdub loops as well with pickup machines, which I have no idea how they work, but anyways, there is this advantage as well. When it comes to the LFOs, the Digitakt has 2 LFOs since the last update, and the Octatrack has 3, so a little advantage. And the bigger advantage, though, I think is LFO designer that the Octatrack has. So basically you can design your own shape and then you can utilize this shape for whatever you want, basically. Another thing when it comes to the Octatrack is a crossfader, and this makes a bigger difference for, I think, all the Octatrack users. It's quite a unique feature. You can set up scenes. Basically, you can lock parameters on multiple tracks on the scene. You can lock other parameters on, again, multiple tracks to another scene and then crossfade in between those. For example, you could have like scene A without any effects on them, and then on scene B you go on all the tracks and you open up the filter, for example, and on some of the tracks you send them into reverb more significantly, and then you can slowly evolve into that kind of scene. Or for example, you can mute stuff as well, and then you can crossfade into another track or another sample or something like that. That's quite powerful tool when it comes to the Octatrack, and I think this is a deal maker for a lot of the Octatrack users. When it comes to the audio quality, Digitakt runs at 48 kHz and the Octatrack is at 44.1 kHz. This makes it a little bit tough because sometimes I have to prepare samples specifically for the Octatrack, because if you upload the 48 kHz samples into the Octatrack, it's not gonna play them well. And there is also the question about the digital to analog converters and vice versa, which is not best quality on the Octatrack and way much better on the Digitakt. Personally, I don't care. I haven't noticed big difference to me, but yeah, there is such a thing. When it comes to storage, the Octatrack has the compact flash, like a big flash card, and it supports up until I think 64 gigs, while the Digitakt has only internal storage with 1 GB, where you can store basically sounds, samples and projects and everything. But when it comes to backup, you have the transfer app right now on your computer, and you can basically back up all the samples or projects or sounds even. On the Octatrack, you can back everything up to the flash card and then put it into another Octatrack, and it's gonna become your Octatrack with all your projects and settings. Another quite important thing to talk about is the fact that you can connect external gear to both of these machines and not only sequence it over MIDI, but also receive and process audio. When it comes to the Digitakt, it's quite straightforward. It has this external mixer function, and then you can utilize 2 inputs as either stereo and connect one machine to it, Or you can use it as two mono inputs and connect two mono synthesizers, for example, to it. You can also send this external audio into reverb or delay or even pan it. But when it comes to the Octatrack, it stands out even more because you have 4 inputs and 4 outputs that could be routed in a different way. For example, you could connect a Groovebox into stereo input over here, like I did with the Digitakt, and then connect 2 mono synthesizers to it. Or, for example, you can connect the Q output into the pedal with some delay and then receive this signal into other inputs. And then you can utilize Q output as a sound effect for every single track. You can also process all the internal audio through the tracks and apply some effects on top of them. When it comes to resampling or recording the external audio on the Digitakt, you can record a sample which is going to be in mono, you can trim it a little bit, normalize, and that's pretty much it. But when it comes to the Octatrack, you can record quantized loops and then overdub on top of them, apply some slicing on the fly, and then use the effects as well. This is quite powerful thing when it comes to live looping and live performance with external gear. And last but not least, I would like to talk about the USB connectivity to your computer. On the Octatrack is quite limited. You can connect USB cable to it and have access to compact flash, and I think that's pretty much it. Not even MIDI over USB. And that's where the Digitakt stands out quite a lot and far from Octatrack, because it has MIDI over USB, it has audio over USB, so basically as an audio interface. You don't necessarily have to connect it to your external audio interface. You just plug the USB cable in and job is done. Your computer will see it as an external audio interface. And you can even record an external input to your computer, to your DAW. This is pretty awesome. And then it has Overbridge as well. And Overbridge takes it into like a whole new universe because it extends the connectivity to your DAW. You can utilize the Digitakt VST to control it from computer. You can record multi-track everything simultaneously. And yeah, this is pretty awesome. I have a video about Overbridge. You can check it out over here. And also you have Transfer Up, which allows you to back up your samples, back up your projects and sounds, which is also pretty cool. So to summarize, I consider the Digitakt as a powerful instrument. It's easy to start with, but quite deep and powerful as a sampler and a drum machine, with the possibility to connect external gear and sequence it from the Digitakt. And I consider the Octatrack as a performance sampler. It's way much more complicated machine than the Digitakt, and it's kind of a little DAW in the box. There is some learning curve to it. You cannot easily start on the Octatrack. It meant to stand in the middle of a bigger Dawless setup, where you have external gear connected, and then I think you can utilize the best out of the Octatrack. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It was me talking a lot. We didn't make any music today. I'm sorry, but this is something what I really wanted to share with all of you. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this format and about these samplers as well. Consider subscribing to support this channel. And until the next time, guys, have fun.